call. Don't need one. Noticing that council members Lorenz and Preston are en route, as we've been told. So, Pam, I'm going to turn it right over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight is the time of year when we're going to use a couple hours of your precious time and go over our proposed budget for fiscal year 26-27. You did receive a memo from me that staff prepared highlighting some of the more significant items by department. We'll be happy to answer any questions you might have as we go along. All the appropriate department heads and staff are in the audience, and everyone is eager to answer any questions you might have. In the meantime, the most important thing to kick off our evening is Mr. Hune, from our finance director, who's going to give you a pretty detailed summary of what the proposed budget looks like, and then we'll go from there. So, Mr. Hune.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Yes, we're always pleased to get to this point in the budget process. It starts in late July, and it means it's almost over for us, which is always nice. Today we're reviewing with you the town budget for 26-27. This first slide shows a really nice graphic of the overall budget in terms of its relative size by fund. In total, we have $233.5 million of expenditures for 26-27. As you can see from that, the lion's share is general fund, underpass, water, sewer, and so forth. $105 million, 0.2 for general fund, which is, I think, the first year we've actually pierced the $100 million mark for general fund in terms of budget. And you can see down the line there the other significant funds, but clearly general fund is the most significant operation that we have in terms of budget size. Just discussing the general fund itself, we have several operating departments in general fund. We manage the payroll costs. There are several components to payroll that we budget for and manage in the general fund. We have pay operating costs, maintenance contracts, some minor capital. And as the council knows, we do a 5-year look at the budget. We have about 1,500 lines of budget we manage each year for that. In terms of general fund departments, we have 15 operating departments. You can see the general size there. Obviously, police, fire, public works, parks and rec are our major departments in terms of budget activity and budget size. There also are public-facing departments in terms of what we provide citizens direct service. Cultural arts, of course, is also a public-facing fund or department, and the rest of the departments are more for internal service fund structure and control management. You can see on the very top of the list there, general government as a department, $27.3 million, a very sizable operation. That, as the council is aware, is kind of our non-departmental department, where we put things in there that are not specific to a department per se, more town-wide items. I'll break it down a little more for you. So $27 million in that general fund, that general government department, $2 million for liability insurance. That's for the entire town-wide. We have about $4 million in contract payments. The largest in that section is our shared sales tax with the county. Also, the general fund, in addition to its operating departments, and those costs support several other funds that are ticked off there on the slide. And transfer out, $17 million of transfers out go out of the general fund to support those departments. The lion's share goes to roadway fund, 9.6 for this fiscal year, or 26-27. And then vehicle and equipment reserve to purchase our police vehicles and fire vehicles and waste trucks. And then debt service payments too go to those funds. So general fund supports not only its own operations, but several departments in terms of capital and so forth. Some other transfers that general fund moves money over to: health and dental fund, $5.5 million, and of course, police and fire pension funds, 9.3 contribution this fiscal year, or that fiscal year, 26-27. This slide here is one you're familiar with. It shows the blue bar represents the general fund's projected fund balance for the current year, the adopted budget year, 26-27, and the out years. We look at this very, very closely. It's one of our most significant financial strategies to ensure, as part of the budget process, we have a 15% fund balance all the time in the reserve. You can see we're going to end this year fairly high in terms of reserve level. We'll spend all that down next fiscal year, mostly on a one-time item, and I'll show you that later on in the presentation. But to see for the budget this year, we're very comfortable at our 15% fund balance. Year 5 is 14.6, but it's close enough in terms of that out year. So we're feeling good about where we stand for general fund right now as balanced. In terms of revenue for general fund, we have several to cover. This slide gives you a sense of what those revenues are. Obviously, the lion's share is going to be sales tax at 42%, or almost $42 million of general fund revenue is supported by sales tax. That's combined, that's the local 2.5% sales tax and the 1% shared sales tax from the state. Property tax is second in line, income tax, charges for services, and so forth. In terms of a total revenue picture for the general fund, the slide you're seeing here now, the blue line represents our adopted budget for total revenue for the 5-year budget, what we knew as of this time last year when it was approved. The red line is the new proposed budget for 5 years. We like to see that line above the blue line. That's a good thing. In terms of revenue, we have seen a recovery of revenue from this time last year, mostly in sales tax. So year over year, on average, we're about $3.8 million more in revenue per year on the general fund, about 19.1 in total for all 5 years. So that's a good position to be in. I'll go into a little more detail later on that. Breaking down the actual different revenue sources, that last slide was total revenue, everything in general fund. We look at sales tax alone. Sales tax was most of what drove that revenue bump up for the 5-year budget, $3.7 million for every year on average, and about 18.6 over the 5-year period. In terms of sales tax, this you'll probably see this from last year. This just shows the sales tax from 2018-19 to our 27-28. Last year, as we noted, we had a significant decline in sales tax. Our state shared sales tax was 8.4% below the prior year, and our local tax was a little better than about 2.6, 2.8 for year end. But we had some concerns with sales tax, so we had a significant drop. When you combine both those, local and state, we had a 2% drop in sales tax. That's significant for a town of our size because we rely so heavily on sales tax. And this time last year when we were seeing that, we were fairly concerned about where things were going. They have recovered significantly since then. We're seeing a pretty big growth back in sales tax. A lot of the previous year was just recession fears, consumer spending down, and that's kind of receded in terms of the minds of the consumer. So we're seeing kind of a recovery there, it's a significant recovery. But if you look at that chart there, it just kind of shows if you took that year out, it just kind of flowed up in terms of a nice regressionary line. So it's good to see that we've recovered from that 1-year dip, and that has helped the general fund in terms of its budget projection for this year. We're at 10.2% for both. Then in the green bars represent projections, of course, and then we're back down to 2% and 2.3 for the out-year growth. Again, staying fairly conservative in our estimates for the out years. Property tax, again, pretty stable. We do a pretty good job kind of budgeting for this in a 5-year outlook. It's a function of what the actuaries tell us for the coming years from basically now to 2040. We have an idea what we might be presenting to them in terms of projections. We try to track IMRF closely in terms of staffing and the rate we pay for them. So generally speaking, we stay pretty close to our planning in terms of adopted budget 5-year versus proposed budget for this year. Income tax also had a nice bump, not as sizable as state sales tax and local sales tax, but it also didn't drop significantly in the previous fiscal year. So we continue to see a strong labor market there, and we're seeing continued growth, which is helpful to the fund balance and to the general fund. Last item I want to discuss is waste collection. As the council knows, we collect waste we collect a refuse fee to collect on waste and garbage, recycle. We do an analysis of that every couple of years to see where we stand in terms of is that program paying for itself in terms of the rate. The waste analysis that we have completed recently indicates it is not. Just as a refresher, we have a weekly service of garbage, recycle, bulky waste, brush, and landscaping. That's weekly service for that, and a seasonal leave service. In terms of the numbers, in terms of annual revenue, we're about $4.6 million per year. That's at $32 a month per resident to pay monthly. That rate was effective back in April 1st of 2021, has not changed since that time period. Our expenses are 5.6 in terms of running the program. Now this is a program that's a cost center in the general fund, but we like to align those costs with the actual revenue to support the service. So currently we're running about $1 million deficit in terms of that service to pay for it. That is being made up by general fund, other taxes, and other revenues. as I mentioned, we like to align the revenue for the service with the actual cost of the service. We are a bit short right now, about $1 million right now, being subsidized by general fund, other revenue sources. We'd like to kind of get a sense from the council, either tonight or later on, where your thoughts are on that. You can give us feedback at the end, of course. The options to limit the subsidy would be one, we could modify the service level, which would represent a change in service that hopefully would represent a cost savings. We would also increase the rate to eliminate the subsidy. If we were to do that right now for this current fiscal year, the rate have to go up to $10 a month, and that would cover the $1 million subsidy payment there. If we do a rate increase, which we're not suggesting right now, but we will come back to you with more information on that once we have some more feedback, we would like to consider some kind of an index rate. When we originally did it $3 a month, that was changed back in 2018. It went from, and every year for 5 years, we increased the rate from 18 to 20 to 24 to 30 and 32. And the last rate increase was in 21 for $32 a month. So we could do something very similar to that, a 5-year rate increase, an indexed rate. But again, we're offering this as information to the council to get a sense of. Staff would like to keep the service for that program being paid by the actual cost of it, by the actual fee, versus having to subsidize that service from general fund resources.
If I could jump in, Mr. Hune,
Please.
just for council's awareness, this is just information for discussion purposes. Again, tonight or in the future, the proposed budget doesn't anticipate any rate increases. We wanted council to be aware of this particular curbside service, which is very valuable, and where we're at with cost recovery in terms of the fee for service versus the cost for the service, and have a discussion that at some point in the future we need to consider a rate adjustment or something, or make a determination that we will continue to subsidize the service. Either way, we're presenting this because it's important for you to know, but the proposed budget does not anticipate any rate increases.
May I ask a question at this point? I was under the impression, because this is it's not an enterprise fund. Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
Correct.
So it's not an enterprise fund, so you are able to pull from general fund.
Correct.
All right,
It
never mind.
could be an enterprise fund. That's not unusual for places to have that waste collection service as an enterprise fund, but we don't do it that way. There's nothing wrong with it either way. But it is a cost center that we track both revenue expense internally to see if we're recovering all the costs to the rate itself.
Right, and that's why you're able to subsidize from general fund. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
It'd be a transfer from general fund if it was an enterprise fund, just to make up that subsidy, basically. If it was an enterprise fund, it'd be a transfer out of $1 million from general fund to basically support it, to keep it whole. So it's all kind of internal.
But can you do that to an enterprise fund?
Yeah,
Transfer?
it's doable. It
It's
could be done.
legal and all that
Yep.
good stuff? Okay.
Just a question, don't want to go down the rabbit hole on this, especially in light of the fact that we're here to talk about the budget, but if and when some proposed solution to waste collection comes to us, at least part of the data, I hope, would include estimated usage of and frequency of usage of, bulky waste and brush and some of the others, so that we can have full analysis as to what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Moving off revenue into expenditure general fund. As you can see, the lion's share is, as you predict, salary and benefits, about $50.2 million. Contractual payments and services around $30 million. The transfers I discussed earlier in terms of supporting debt service and capital, 17, and then down the line there. So $105.2 million of spending in general fund for the 26-27 fiscal year coming up. In total, again, this is the slide that shows total expense as from adopted budget to proposed. There is some significant adjustments that we're making there. Most of them are kind of one time in next fiscal year, transferred out for some funding capital needs, which I'll explain in a bit, and then some contractual payments and service that have also increased over all the years. About $22.7 million in total over the 5-year period. So you can see it's helpful that we have additional revenue to support this increasing cost to help us balance the budget. In terms of salary and benefits, again, just some illustrative information here. We have police, fire, public works, and parks and rec are our major departments in terms of staffing and staffing costs. Again, our public facing departments as well as cultural arts. some inspections too. So you can see the lion's share of the spending is all in those public-facing service departments. The remaining departments are, again, internal service fund, HR, finance, information technology, communications, and leadership, and so forth. Salary and benefits, we do a pretty good job keeping track of this in terms of our 5-year budget to the current year budget. So we don't see a lot of deviation here. Typically between the adopted budget blue line and the red line proposed budget. We have made some staffing changes this year in this budget that we can call to your attention. We have removed some positions from the general fund. Departments, communications to facilities have essentially streamlined some of their operations. These are positions that weren't filled that they feel they no longer need. So we pulled them out of the budget, so we've removed the positions. We've also added 3 new positions to the budget. As you can see there, assistant fire chief. There are currently 2. We're going to add a 3rd one. That's going to be a temporary position in terms of for succession planning. Information technology or innovation technology is a very demanding area for service and need. It was felt that some more support was needed there, so we've added a position, technology operations manager, for that role. And we've also had some scaling up of duties in terms of CDM for cultural arts and part-time office associate. Contractual service, this is the big one we have. It's in terms of, besides salary and benefits, a lot going on here. In terms of the types of spending that we see here, this is in these lines, there's several lines that make this up. This is where we spend a lot of our police and fire contributions. This is where we spend our payments to the county for state shared sales tax or for sales tax, liability insurance for the town, Connect Transit, and then just a variety of contractual agreements and obligations across departments are in this budget lines. In terms of the current year, as the council's aware, we're over last year's budget. This is comes from the Axon contract. That's a 10-year agreement. That's new to the budget that we've programmed into the system. We also moved up some expenses that were in the out years to kind of front load for the capital campaign for the CDM and for public art. So that wasn't necessarily new money. It was just money we moved from out years to the current year to make those funds available for those activities. We've had some METCOM increases that we've programmed into the budget also, and some carryover. And then, of course, with the increase in our sales tax from local, we've seen an increase in how much we're contributing to the county for state shared sales tax. Same for the out years. Axon contract's going to go for a number of 10 years, but it's obviously in the 5-year budget. We have experienced some utility costs, some inflation costs and utilities for the general fund and the water and sewer. And again, with our increase in base for revenue for sales tax, we've increased our payment to the county, as well as some METCOM increases and a small increase in public safety, public pensions in that first year. So that kind of gives you a bit of an overview. There's a lot of lines in this budget that gives you a sense of kind of what some of the major items were that drove up our costs this year. Transfers out, there's kind of a big spike there that you might have recalled from the very first slide showing total expenses for the town or for the general fund. The types of spending here, again, is we're moving money out of general fund to support roadway, to support debt service payments, to support waste, vehicle and equipment replacement. This first one here, we moved about $4 million out of general fund. A lot of that was to pay for the replacement of the London pedestrian bridge, which is a project for next year. Also, we have, as the council is aware, we have a $12 million bond issue we'll be doing in April or in the future to help support the underpass. We have an additional transfer out from general fund to support that debt service payment that we're going to be loading up in debt service funds. So kind of to summarize, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. Last year we had some concerns about the budget cycle in terms of seeing revenue drop off, and we took appropriate action there. To balance the budget last year, we had to reduce a fair amount of capital. We had to back off on some of our funding for economic development. We did reduce our extra pension payments. Now, we made our regular pension payment 100% by 2040. If you recall, last couple of years, we've done some additional extra payments there. We still made extra payments last year or this year, but we had to back off a little bit on those. We have no contingency per se in the program into the budget. We always have fund balance and reserve, but nothing specific in the department for non-department contingency. We didn't have to reduce operations, staffing, or programs in the general fund. We mostly did kind of reductions in capital. We kind of were in a wait-and-see position. We spent down our excess reserves to kind of help us during that kind of float us during that time period, and we wanted to see what happened this year. This year, as I mentioned, revenue has recovered, and that's been very helpful, and it's helped alleviate a lot of our concerns from the previous fiscal year. It helped us kind of balance the budget kind of naturally through our revenue growth. We didn't have to do any kind of operational cuts. We restored some capital, but we were also able to take on a new project with the pedestrian bridge that would have been more challenging if we hadn't had a recovery of revenue. Again, I discussed the staffing changes already in terms of general fund with new positions and the removed positions. All of our targets for general fund are being met. We did discuss the waste fee. We do want to talk about that needs to be addressed in terms of having revenue cover the service or having expenditures decrease to kind of cover the current revenue source. That's kind of it for general fund. To move on to vehicle and equipment reserve fund, again, this fund is completely subsidized or completely funded by general fund. As in terms of a reminder, the general fund moves money over there annually to the vehicle and equipment reserve fund, and that fund holds that money until we make purchases for useful life of the equipment. Of course, ambulances, waste trucks, police cars, and so forth. We'd like to keep that target at 75% of total spend for the 5-year average. So this is a fund balance report showing we're currently at 25-26 in the out years. That red line, of course, is the target, so we're at or above our target for all 5 years. So with that being the case, as well as general fund 50%, we feel comfortable with those funds in terms of the financing. Capital spending, that we've covered fairly significantly on the 5th. This is just a quick reminder slide of what we're spending. $188 million is our capital plan for the current year and the next 5 years. We discussed this at length, so I won't go into more detail, but we feel comfortable with what we're doing in terms of spending. The biggest, of course, is transportation, followed by other, which is our asset purchases, and then sewer and water. Our debt position remains pretty good in terms of that. It remains pretty status quo, with the exception of a couple things. As a reminder, the town's debt is funded by general fund resources, available TIF. Water and sewer has a piece of some of those debts because they're revenue-related bonds. We have a small federal subsidy we get back that helps us pay for that debt. And what's been programmed into the budget for the 5 years, and frankly every budget cycle, we have sufficient funds for it to manage our existing debt in the proposed budget. A quick overview where we stand. At the end of this fiscal year, we'll owe about $60 million in total debt. At the end of next fiscal year, it's going to drop down about 51.4. We are making a pretty significant payment next fiscal year, and that payment is in relation to our debt restructuring program we've done for a number of years. It's kind of coming to an end, actually, which is nice. What's not on this chart is the proposed refunding that we have not done yet for multiple of our bond issues that we'll do in April, as well as the new money issue that we're going to propose in April too to help support the underpass funding. Just as a reminder, our debt service restructure, we developed several years ago. It's been going very well in terms of paying debt off early, paying an entire total bond issue off, and doing multiple refundings. It's all kind of gone as planned and kind of coming to an end as we get closer to, as you know, the part of the funding for our debt is our TIF money from Uptown. When that agreement expires in 26, we'll lose that revenue source. We've known this for a number of years, of course, and we've been planning for it for a number of years. This is kind of the last part of that planning, so that's been going very well. As part of that planning, we paid debt off early. We refunded debt. We didn't issue new revenue or new taxes for it. We didn't expand or extend the debt. We kept it kind of vanilla. So it's been a pretty good plan in terms of how it's gone well, and we're very pleased with how it's been moving along. Other funds, water, spent a little time on this one to give you guys some background and share some thoughts for the future. So the slide you're looking at right now shows the water fund's fund balance projections for the current year. The water fund has essentially 4 funds that make up the water operation. The purple fund balance is the fund balance for the operating fund. It's a main fund. The blue is the capital fund balance, and then the red and green are debt service fund balance and replacement fund. As you can see from this, we have a target fund balance of 20% for the operating fund. We are achieving that in all fiscal years. You can see that we're not achieving the capital reserve target of 1.5 for all fiscal years. In order to achieve a fund balance target of 20% or above in the operating fund, we've had to essentially spend down the capital reserve we have and also essentially cut back on how much we're transferring from operating to capital. As a recap, the operating fund contains all the operating activity of the water fund, but it also has a transfer out to the capital fund to spend for major capital. We've had to reduce that transfer and reduce capital spending to maintain the operating fund at a reserve, and that's concerning to us. In terms of kind of a recap on rates, we would like to have a rate discussion with the council about water and sewer actually in the near future. As a recap, the rate structure is we have currently it's $7.11 per 1,000 gallons and $6.48 system maintenance fee. That's the current rate. The council has approved up through 28-29 a 2% rate increase, and then we also put 2% in for the years 4 and 5 as a placeholder. To give you a sense of that, the additional 2% rate increase is about $200,000 of additional revenue when we do that rate increase each year. Looking back on the last 3 fiscal year closes, we've seen increases in operating of almost $600,000 a year. So we're not keeping up in terms of that revenue rate to the cost of business. We've had significant inflation with chemicals. Annually, chemicals go up $220,000 a year. Payroll, of course, with COLA goes up, and then utilities have also gone up. So we're seeing fairly significant operating cost increases over the last few years that have made the 2% essentially inadequate to cover. What that also creates is a problem for capital. There's probably $5 million plus of capital that we have not programmed into the budget because we can't currently afford to make those capital contributions. So we will be coming back to you in the near future to talk about necessary rates to help us both satisfy the operating reserve need for operating and then also making sure we can program into the capital needs for the water system to maintain its high quality. Very similar situation with sewer. Sewer's going to spend down quite a lot of its capital in next fiscal year in 26-27. You can see it has a pretty sizable balance there right now in 25-26. However, in the out years, there's virtually nothing in the capital reserve fund. Now, we're still spending money out of there. It's just as the money comes in, we spend it, and we haven't got that cushion or reserve. In terms of recapping the rate discussion for sewer, same thing. The council approved a 2% rate increase all the way through 28-29. That rate increase only gives us about $100,000 a year in new revenue, and operating costs are going up by twice that from 22 fiscal year close to 25 fiscal year close. The situation is actually a little more significant for sewer. There is some significant capital projects that we need to program into the budget in the next 5 years that are not there now. Mainly in force main replacement. There's 3 force mains that need to be replaced or addressed. Our estimates are about $12 million for that. That would not be something we could accumulate in terms of cash, so we would do a rate increase that would support the annual debt service financing for those assets to be rebuilt and replaced. There's about $4.2 million of sewer line that sewer would like to do. They are doing sewer line in the fund now. They would like to do more, which we could not program in because of the revenue source. And then about $2.4 million on lift station and other utility improvements. So at this point, we have the system is fine. It's in good shape right now for the year end. We just perceive out years as being challenges to fund capital that is going to be definitely needed, and we want to give the council kind of a preamble to this discussion next fiscal year about looking at how we're going to address the rates, what rate might be needed to satisfy the capital needs that we see that we're not programmed in the budget right now. And stormwater also has a similar problem. That's a unique rate. It's $4.60 per month per ERU, which is equivalent residential unit. It has not changed since 2006. There are several unfunded projects that we'd like to put in that system in terms of several $1 million. But again, we're having struggles meeting the resource need from the revenue side. So again, water, sewer, stormwater will all be part of a future discussion in terms of what options are available to satisfy the capital and operating needs that we're seeing in terms of escalating cost. Some good news in terms of that process. So water, health and dental health insurance fund, is in a very good position. This fund, over the years, I've been up here talking about it. It's been a difficult fund at times and not so difficult. Right now, the health insurance fund is healthy in terms of fund balance. We try to predict best we can the claim activity. It can swing wildly and it can impact the fund balance pretty significantly. But for now, as you can see, we're actually above our target, which is a nice, comfortable place to be. Year 5 is a little below, but we try to estimate the claim costs in a very conservative manner. So for now, health insurance fund has typically been a problem child off and on over the years. Not so bad these last couple of years. In terms of kind of just running our fiscal strategies, these are the strategies that the council is well aware we use to kind of guide us and where we stand in terms of our financial roadmap and our financial position. General fund target balance is being met. Our debt service coverage ratios are in good condition. We're managing our debt well. We have sufficient resources to manage that. The health and dental fund, as just mentioned, is in a good position. And vehicle equipment reserve also, again, keeping our assets turned over and reliable and available is all in good shape. Discussed at length the water capital and sewer capital funds and stormwater. We have some concerns there that we want to share with you during this budget cycle and to talk about likely next year early, discuss possible rate options there. And then, of course, we don't have anything in general fund contingency, which is, it's problematic. It's not the end of the world, but it's problematic not to have something set aside available in operations right away. Now, of course, we have fund balance and we have a strong fund balance, so we have a reserve there. But we prefer to have kind of a first level reserve of contingency, which we're not doing right now. So really, just to kind of summarize, fund reserves are strong with the exception of some out years in terms of water, sewer, stormwater for capital. And we'll address that in the future with you in terms of options and recommendations. We had a nice recovery of sales tax this year. That was kind of a one-year blip last year that created some angst, but that's been resolved. Expenditures have generally remained stable year over year with the exception of some contract stuff and some new stuff and some inflation, but it's been manageable given our current budget resources for revenue. There's been some streamlining with departments in terms of eliminating positions, which is always encouraging to see. Department heads always do a good job looking at what their needs are and what can be streamlined and what can be eliminated and what can be added. As you can see, we have added some positions for demand in terms of need and resources and also for succession planning with fire. We would like to have a little more flexibility with general fund capital spending and economic development. We haven't been able to restore all that yet, but we feel hopeful for the future. Again, the waste fee needs to be dealt with in terms of subsidy and just get the council's thoughts on what they want to do with that. Water, sewer, stormwater, capital projects, we do need to manage the rates there somewhere to help us resolve some of those concerns. Economically, from what I'm hearing and reading, we're still above our target inflation, but it has moderated down and employment slightly up, but still fairly stable from what I'm hearing. So recessionary fears for 26 are less likely, and most of what I've read and seen, the economy is looking to be fairly stable over 26. So we've tried to budget in accordance with that in terms of out-year spending and out-year revenue, and we'll certainly monitor how it goes. We're expecting a kind of favorable, stable economy next year or next calendar year. This slide just shares with you some pages you might want to look at in the budget that kind of zero in on certain key topics or certain key indicators financially for us that are useful. And of course, you can spend your time going through the budget any page you want, but these are some pages you might want to look at if you have time. With that concludes my comments on the presentation. You can take any questions that the council might have.
No, just thank you, Mr. Hune. In summary, I'm going to regurgitate a few things that Mr. Hune has shared with you. The proposed budget that we're presenting you tonight, we will come back with you for formal approval in March. And then, of course, the fiscal year begins April 1st. So what we hear from you tonight, we will incorporate into our final budget document. The financial picture here is we remain strong and confident as we move into fiscal year 26-27. We do think that there's some important topics we need to cover with you so we get direction on funding of our capital needs in the future, and even funding of curbside collection services and what council would like to see in terms of cost recovery in the future. So important topics yet to come, but we did want to plant the seed tonight, be able, everyone's here to answer any questions you might have if you want to discuss that. But this picture, I think, is a strong financial picture for all of our funds for the upcoming fiscal year. We don't want to kick the can down the road, which is why we want to have conversations about rates and capital and council's direction for future. But before I forget, I do want to thank the town's budget committee, led by Mr. Hune, and the finance staff, and Ms. Oth, and Ms. Keeger, and Mr. Day, and Administrative Analyst Jacob Smith. And I don't know who else I may have missed, but I think that's the primary budget committee. And then, of course, every department head here in the room participated in numerous internal meetings and discussions to get us to this point. So we're opening up the floor now to mayor and council for discussion, and we'll respond to questions. Thank you.
Ms. Smith, go right ahead.
If you can go back to slide 20.
Okay, let's do this a better way. This one?
Yes, that's
Okay.
the one. So I had noticed that the expenditures were about 22 million more than the revenues. And as you're explaining on here, some of that is simply carrying over and making expenditures from prior years that are just now happening. And you give that breakdown in here because I did not see any tapping of reserves as we intentionally did in prior budget years. Did we go into reserves in any of the funds?
Sure. So we are spending our excess reserves in general fund to about $5.7 million, I believe, which contributed to the $22 million you referred to. $22 million is all funds, so capital, debt service, enterprise, everything. General fund is spending down some of its reserves, excess reserves for capital, and then the out years just continue on with operations. Other funds that contributed to that $22 million is the underpass fund, the equipment, they're mostly capital-related funds where we built up funds over many years, and now we're spending them in a certain fiscal year, typically year one. So general fund did have some excess reserves spend down, but the majority of that $22 million we referred to are other funds that are capital in nature, and those funds have built up over several fiscal years and now being spent on projects.
And then on page 17, because I'm trying to take these in order so you don't have to hop all over the place.
Okay. Oh, went too far. There you go.
When we're looking at waste collection, I've been following the discussion in the Chicago Tribune about what they've been dealing with, and their waste collection was a big target of discussion because apparently there are some rates in Chicago that have been held flat, and other people are paying more that subsequently came into service. And somebody who was living in an apartment complex knew that he was paying more for compared to what those city residents were paying who were fortunate enough to be under that fixed contract. When it comes time to look at the water and sewer and waste, I would appreciate if there could be some data on what we are charging for single-family residents or people in a duplex or multifamily, but townhome compared to what commercial rates are for residents in an apartment. So if you could just keep that as something that would be appreciated for a comparison.
Absolutely.
And then on page 32, you're showing that the townwide debt outstanding at the end of 3/31/27, okay, is at the 51, but it doesn't include the $12 million bond issue or what could be refinanced. And when you've been talking about the refunding, would the principal amount on that debt then stay the same? So the difference between what you're showing here for 3/31/2027, theoretically, it would only increase by 12 million? Or would-
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
On page 36, you've got a discussion of the water rate. And one of the other council members asked about the subsidy we're providing for sewer rates out of general fund revenues. As water is an enterprise fund, am I correct?
Correct.
Is it permitted to have subsidies from other sources that the town generates?
The intent for the water and sewer fund is to be supported by its own revenue sources, the rates that each people pay. What happens typically is if those aren't sufficient, you cut back on expenses. If you can't cut back on expenses, then there would have to be a transfer from the general fund to support that. That does happen. It's kind of a case where if you get to that point, you've got some significant issues that you haven't resolved in the water and enterprise funds. Sometimes it can be typically a loan to the fund for a while to pay back. Those are options that are available. They're kind of worst case options in terms of that. So we prefer to have a supporting rate for the costs versus general fund kicking in tax money to support that. It's not the intention of the fund to have that happen.
And to be clear, we haven't operated that way. We have not operated, we've always operated our enterprise funds as independent funds.
Okay.
And we have not taken money from general fund to support or subsidize the enterprise funds.
Okay. Page 38, looking at the sewer rates. In a prior presentation, I had asked the question about what is the percentage of completion on our projects of taking the camera into the sewers and then doing sewer linings. And
The televising, correct, yeah.
I believe at the time it was 8%. Do we have that number now, what it is currently?
I believe we're closer to 11%. Yes, I'm seeing a lot of nods, so about 11%. So we have improved.
And what is the purpose of the sewer lining? What are we seeking to achieve by pursuing that?
Mr. Otto, Mr. Comfort, somebody who understands the sewer mains better than me, if you could respond, thank you.
Thank you for the question. We have found sewer lining to be the most cost-effective way to rehabilitate a sewer. It essentially involves pulling a resin-impregnated sock through the sewer and rehabilitating the pipe without digging. So that means you don't have restoration of the pavement, the buildings, whatever's above the sewer. So it's a very cost-effective method, and if allowed to deteriorate to the point where we have to dig certain sections of the sewer, we found that we could probably line an entire section of sewer, depending on the size, for the cost of digging, say, and replacing, say, a 10-foot section. We could do the whole block and rehabilitate it if we get it in time. So we're trying to proactively televise our sewers, understand where our problems are at, and then proactively go in and rehabilitate them with this cost-effective method.
That's great to hear that we're up to 11%. And on a related issue, and for informational purposes, even if a wipe says flushable, those are not to go into the system?
That's correct.
Okay. I need to tell my exchange student who brought some over from Europe, and I'm like, no. I'll wait for round two because I've got separate questions, but thank you.
Mr. Otto, what's the extended life from a relining, would you say?
We would say at least 50 years and potentially up to 100 years.
Wow, that's significant.
Yes.
Thank you. Questions next? Mr. Byers.
Thank you, and thanks for putting this together. I've just been crunching numbers and fun stuff to go through if you're a nerd, I guess. I had a couple of questions. So on page 9, I just want to make sure I'm reading correctly. So proposed fiscal year 2026, 2027 what was our increase over last year from the general fund to this year as actually happened?
For current year, with the proposed budget, the adopted budget had $94.2 million of total revenue, and we're estimating now 97.8. So
Okay.
about $3.8 million more on average for all years.
Okay. And so the general fund revenue then, as we're looking at for this year, is what? I mean, about 1.8 or 1.7 million dollars up from last year, if I'm looking at the proposed fiscal year 2026-27 line.
95.5 to 99.5. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
About
great.
4
And-
right there.
And if I read the sales tax revenue sheet, it seems like the vast majority of that is from sales tax revenue, which would be a positive thing because that signals increased economic activity. Is that fair to say? Or?
Absolutely correct. Yeah, if you looked at the slide last year, the red line was below the blue line. This year
Right.
it's above, so we've kind of recovered. So it's all been sales tax.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That's helpful and that's positive to see. I did have a question on page 14, and maybe this is. I'll tie two things together that, or maybe a couple things that I'm just interested in conversation on. So, on page 14, we're seeing. I guess how do you guys kind of model the increases to property tax revenue and general fund? Are you guys forecasting projected property value growth in addition to, new development, new growth? I mean, could you talk through the modeling of how you put that together?
Sure. We have, they're all kind of all cost centers there. The police, the fire, IMRF, Social Security, Medicare are all cost centers. We have a pretty good idea of what it's going to cost us to fund those things in the current year and the out years. The actuary gives us analysis to show what the pension contribution might be in the out years. We use that as our basis. We ask IMRF to give us what their rates are going to be in the out years, and we apply that to our total payroll costs that we generate for the year in all the out years. So we have a pretty good idea of where we stand in terms of those costs and what we need to do in terms of levy information to levy that to cover that cost. It's a bit of a guess where assessed value will be. We usually contact the county multiple times as we get closer to that October, November, December date to say where are we at, and then we make a final determination of what the growth might be based on their information. And we're usually pretty close because we can get information that's pretty accurate from the county. So so we know the cost of it based on analysis for out years for payroll, for pension fund contributions, for IMRF. We have a sense of, we guess at, essentially educated guess at the assessed value, and that produces a tax rate ultimately that we have.
Okay. So it's fair to say then, and I know that we've talked before at these meetings about trying to get towards, especially on the pension funding, we have some goals we're trying to meet over the next 14 years or so to be adequately funded. So it's fair to say that this is where we kind of need to be. And then in terms of where that plays out in the real world, in terms of where assessed values are at, is that from existing property or is that from new property that's been built? It's kind of hard to say until we get there. Is that kind of fair to say?
Sure. We have a base of property that we're aware of. We know what's being added in terms of property. We know what's being increased in terms of property values. So if that's a number we look at very closely and see. We know what new property is coming on and so forth. So that's all part of the equation to calculate the overall rate. We know what we need in terms of levy, but it's a function of the rate and the assessed value that drives those.
Okay. And certainly it helps if we have new growth and new development
Absolutely.
that expands the tax base. And so
Correct.
we know that we're going to need to spend this money in the future years to adequately fund the pension systems. Then it's just a question of how do we pull that money from our EAV, and are we growing the EAV or is it staying steady, essentially? Okay, that's fair. And then I had a kind of a zoom out question in the kind of intro city manager's budget message. We talk about a $233 million fiscal year 2026, 2027, which is total expenditures and transfers. And I think last year, if my notes serve correctly, it was about $211 million is the number that we put out. I know we went through the general fund and kind of the questions I asked and kind of where that general fund is increasing. But can you talk about kind of the rest? And I know you've covered it in individual slides throughout the presentation, but maybe can you just kind of summarize, if we're looking at total $233 million in expenditures and transfers from last year's $211 less the general fund. You just kind of talk about where on both the revenue and expenditure side that comes from.
Sure. I might need to get back to you on that in terms of specifics. A lot of that up and down of that total spend is related to capital projects. And as you're well aware, as certain years we have lean years in terms of the capital projects haven't come to fruition, or we have a couple come through that are significant. The underpass comes to mind immediately as being an expense that it was essentially new to the budget in terms of the cost increase. So that contributed to the increase to 233. Water, sewer has some pretty big increases in their spending for that current year. Vehicle equipment reserve also has some pretty big spending up. Again, capital funds drive a lot of that up and down. Operationally, we stay pretty stable, to be quite candid, in terms of the spend in that capital size where most of that happens.
And I'll jump in and say same thing, only maybe a little bit differently. The budget message pertains to what we're presenting and proposing in the budget. And oftentimes when we get to the end of the current fiscal year, we find that we didn't spend all those capital dollars and they get carried over year to year, which is why the next year then looks even bigger when we put the budget together and put that message together.
Sure. No, that makes total sense. Then I want to go to, I like the red light, yellow light, green light page. Just a couple of thoughts. I mean, on the water and sewer funds, I think we had discussed a couple of years ago and we put together kind of a flat 2% annual kind of escalator, essentially, which I just see as an inflationary escalator to make sure that we're keeping up. But it sounds like that's not keeping up. I mean, and we certainly will have discussions, but I mean, is there a percent increase that's not 2% that you think is going to hold true more over time over the next 5 to 10 years that's more appropriate? Is that 2.5%? Is it 3%? I mean, what do you think would kind of adequately get us to where our water and sewer capital funds need to be?
We've done some modeling, but I'm not really prepared to say what that might be. I can say with 100% certainty 2% is not going to be enough for sure. But I'd hate to throw a number out now, but we will certainly give you a lot more options and data when we're ready to talk about it.
All right, I would just say philosophically, I would I like the philosophy behind the approach of the 2% flat increases, and if we're gonna change that 2% number, I'd rather us do it the same way, where it's a flat, steady increase over time instead of kind of kicking the can down the road and then having to do, if the cost of everything increases. So I'd rather us try to find a number that we can all agree on, keep it flat over time, and we certainly can reevaluate as we're doing now. So that's just my 2 cents philosophically. And then can you touch on again, and I know some of it's related to expenditures that are coming up on the financial strategy and general fund contingency. Can you just kind of maybe re-summarize kind of your points there on kind of why you have that one as red light?
Sure. I think it's a best practice to have something loaded into the budget that we recognize as contingency, as funds that have not been necessarily allocated to a particular department yet, but would be available if it needed. We like to have about $1 million of contingency sitting in the budget all the time. So what would happen there is if police or fire or public works need additional funding for something unexpected, we would just pull from that department, that contingency department. Without it, then we're essentially just going into kind of a deficit spend, and the general fund reserves pick it up on the backside. So I'm not overly concerned about not having contingency, but I think it's a best practice to have kind of in your pocket cash available for certain operations versus what's in the bank, in total. So it's just basically another level of contingency available to us that we like to do because of best practice.
Okay, thanks. And I want to go back to, just for one, I think a final comment I wanted to make on page 14. Thanks. So I appreciate Mr. Hume's notes on this is kind of where we're going to need to be in terms of revenue coming out of property taxes in order to adequately fund our pensions. And I think that to me, I think that provides a mission to the town as an organization, but also as us, the council, that I want to see, as this revenue increases over time, I want to see that driven by new development and new growth to our EAV, and not sticking that on existing homeowners and having them pay higher property tax bills. So philosophically, I'd like to make that a goal, and I know that there's a lot we're working on the economic development world, but I'd really like to see us finding ways to have new industry and new growth driving how we're going to meet these pension obligations in the future, and not saddling that on residents and homeowners who are, getting stuck with higher bills and just about everything. So that's just a philosophical note, but appreciate it. Thank you.
And I think an appropriate note, and that's always kind of been our overarching goal, is to cover some of these cost increases with new growth in that. The one thing we can't control is the EAV, what the EAV is going to be on that. And that's been an issue in the near term, I think, where we've seen some significant increases in EAVs because of demand for housing and that. But you're spot on that should be our primary driver, is to get it from new growth and new activity. Next, Mr. Roberge.
Hey, thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very informative, very easy to digest, and I appreciate putting it in layman's terms so we can all understand it. Just want to go to slide number 36. Had a question regarding the annual increase, the 586,000. Did some quick math on the numbers you have split out there, and that comes to 486. I'm just curious if that was if something was not included.
There were other operating costs that were not super significant. There were increases, but I wanted to at least capture 2 or 3 of the big ones that you can see.
Okay.
In total, it was 586, but I didn't include all those that had average. They were like $50,000 here and so forth.
Just wanted to reconcile the $100,000 difference. That's all.
Sure. Yep. It's there. It's just not on the slide.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions? Ms. Lawrence?
What are the procedures? Do we only have 2 times to speak?
No.
Okay. So, in summary, it sounds like revenue in the general fund is healthy,
It has recovered, correct? Yeah, to what
largely because of sales tax.
correct.
Have we seen some increases in sale? I'm losing track of our fees and our sales tax. Have we seen an increase sales tax? Or
No,
is
we
that-
haven't. The rate has not increased for sales tax.
Okay,
though,
that's coming
yeah.
soon.
Not for sales tax, for hotel, motel, and food and beverage
There
tax,
you go.
yes.
Okay. And grocery tax is staying in place.
Correct.
That never went away. So it's looking pretty robust, and yet we are also increasing parks and rec fees and museum fees, from what I could tell. And
That is true.
I guess it's parks and rec, but after school care and things like that.
Correct.
Why did we decide to do that?
I'd have to default to Mr. Dammer. I think it's a function of the cost of those programs and meeting the goals of those. I think in some of those costs, we like to keep recovering total costs for the programs.
Do we have a threshold that we try to recover?
It depends on the program. I think some programs
60% or 80% or?
Yeah, I think again, globally difference, like for pools, there's a certain subsidy target you want to hit, but for programs like before and after school program, I have to default to Mr. Dammery to kind of explain what their reason is for that. Typically, is to recover the cost for the program.
All right, that's okay. But then general fund reserves, general fund reserves are also strong.
Correct.
Caveat being the reserve for water and sewer are not strong.
Correct.
Okay, so how strong? What's the total amount of reserves that we have unallocated? There's fund balances,
Sure.
but are there other line items in the budget that are dollars parked somewhere or unallocated?
Not unallocated in terms of where we have program and expenses. The fund balance is where we have all our reserve money. So general fund, we keep 15% fund balance always available as our target. So that's money we try not to spend into unless we have an economic issue or an opportunity. Water and sewer both have their own reserve policies, 20% for water, 25% for sewer and operating. We try to keep at that level. So that when we begin the year and end the year, we want to keep that at those percentages. We try to keep a dollar amount of reserve in the capital funds for both water and sewer that we're not meeting as part of our discussion there.
But I've heard you say before that you've parked money somewhere. What does that mean?
Sometimes it means that we might move money over for a capital fund that we didn't necessarily have. By way of example, we we did put some money over in the fire station fund years ago that had some surplus in anticipation of needs for that.
Yeah, I think that was one that you recently referenced, that there was $3 million parked somewhere.
Right.
And is that not part of the fund balance? That's separate of fund balance?
That's in the capital fund. That's available for that fund or for any purpose really, because it's money we put over there in anticipation of needed expenses for the future, and that was done several years ago.
That would be included in that particular fund's
Correct.
fund balance when
Right.
we say that.
Say that again?
That would be included, for example, if Mr. Hune would say, well, we moved 3 million, we parked 3 million in the fire station fund for future fire station, that would be included in the fund balance. Let's say if the fund balance showed us 4.5 million, I don't know what it is, but let's say if it showed at 4.5 million, that would include the 3 million he moved over there and parked it there.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get is, what's our cushion?
Sure. Well, it depends on what the fund is. For general fund, our cushion is 15%, which is approximately, look at that balance, is about $15 million on a $100 million operation. We have some cushion in the vehicle and equipment reserve of 75% of the average spend. We always keep in fund balance. We have 20% cushion in the water fund.
Sewer.
We have 25% cushion in the sewer fund. There's no real cushion in the capital funds for water and sewer. Basic capital fund, the cushion is basically above zero. You know, we like to keep something there for emergencies, particularly water and sewer. So we have a $1.5 million cushion that we're not keeping in the water fund for all years, and I think a $500,000 cushion for sewer capital. So we have a lot of funds that we set aside, depending on what fund we're talking about, to give us this, first to give us economic, to deal with an economic issue in general fund, or a capital overrun in one of the capital funds.
I guess my point that I'm trying to make here is, you know, before we raise any fees, we really need to make sure that we find all these cushions and feel comfortable with what we have in reserve and not a penny more. Because, you know, the description here in one of our introductory letters is something to the effect of the economy's great and people are spending. People are spending, but it's on essential things that just are costing more. And the cost of living is getting worse and worse. I don't share the view that the economy is, you know, a gay old time. I just don't see it. I don't see it at all.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that. The economy, what I'm hearing is it will be stable in 26. We had some recovery from last year. This time last year, we were concerned because it was challenging, recessionary fears. People were cutting back and entrenching. That has been somewhat alleviated in terms of what people are seeing and hearing. I'm not saying that it's going gangbusters, but we have recovered to more of a stable environment. As far as we know now, anything could happen in 26. It could be challenging to the economic environment. But for now, what we're forecasting is a fairly stable economy.
Stable and bad. I mean, stable and expensive, you know. Sure. So, okay, a matter of opinion. Can you walk us through more of the details on the debt service? That slide, I think, is not representative, but it's not complete. What will be all in once we do the additional underpass bond?
Sure. The reason we didn't include this slide is it's just not, we haven't done it yet, and I wanted to demonstrate in the slide that we're kind of addressing our debt service structure reprogramming by showing that $7 million decrease. That's why I put the note there saying if this does not include the pending refunding, which we haven't done yet, which have minimal impact on the principal, but the new money bond issue will certainly increase that. So basically the math is the 44.7 in 26 of general fund GO debt will be increased by $12 million.
So what will be the final number that when people say the town is in debt for?
Well, it'll be 44 times 12 is 56.
So 44 plus 12.
Yeah. Yes, correct. And we represent in the budget, we were showing that debt service payment, we're showing the schedule. We just chose not to put it in this down because I wanted to kind of keep it consistent with our existing debt picture. We're certainly not trying to hide the fact everyone knows we're issuing $12 million of debt. And I wanted to make sure that you understood it was in this slide just to show that we have a decrease in our existing debt based on our restructure plan. But yeah, you're 100% correct. The debt will be, if we do make that issue, which we will be $12 million higher.
Okay. Lastly, I want to talk about economic development. That was talked about a bit ago. And this would be probably in the contractual obligations. Are we funding economic development, the EDC?
Yes, let me let me find that in my budget. I think it's in
It's in general government.
general expense.
Yeah.
Generally found on page 119, 120 of your budget, big budget binder. We fund general, and we fund the Economic Development Council. I don't remember what category, and I don't have it up on my computer right now, so I can look for it real quickly. We are proposing in this 26-27 budget funding EDC at the 50,000.
Is that down from previous years, or is that the best?
Historically, we have funded at 100,000.
So we're looking at a 50% cut to the EDC.
That would be our proposal, yes.
And why is that?
Our thought was to take the remaining 50,000, we would still have 100,000 budgeted toward economic development, but use the remaining 50 to support local business, more targeted local business support programs. I've asked Mr. Duffel to put together some ideas of what that could look like, but we do have the full 100 grand in the budget. It would just be allocated differently.
So is that what, on the conclusionary slide 43, a bullet point about a halfway down, use more flexibility on general fund capital spending and economic development? What do those words strung together mean to you?
What they mean to me is in the past budget, we had set aside, I think, about $2 million in economic development that would be available for economic development. It was uncommitted to. We had to remove that last year and weren't able to restore it.
So that represents $2 million?
Correct. That was cut last year to make the budget balance.
Okay, but then we are going to cut our normal funding of the EDC.
It's been proposed we're going from $100,000 to $50,000. That's correct.
Okay, I want to pivot to Smart City. What in total have we spent on Smart City?
Historically, or just in this proposed budget for 26-27?
I guess, where would I find that in the budget?
I might ask Ms. Scottaraju to
That
come
would
forward.
be, there's several lines in the budget for innovation and technology for Smart City, and then I would need to default to Ms. Scottaraju to kind of give us a sense of what defines those expenditures and where they are. I know there's significant funds set aside for that, but I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head how much it is without doing more
Yeah,
research.
I'd like to see that unless she wants to come forward, I guess.
Well, she's our expert, so if it's okay, we'll ask her to come forward and talk a little bit about that. And in the meantime, I've logged back into the computer. I'll see if I can find some of this information.
Good evening. So Smart City is not just one line item. It typically covers applications, technologies, and data-related projects that kind of make up our overall Smart City journey.
Okay, and so maybe a specific question for this budget. What are you budgeting for Smart Cities this year?
I should have brought my notes with me, but I typically, when we talk about smart cities, I kind of aggregate multiple line items to make up for that. So any project that talks about, when we talk about data-related decision-making, those are counted towards smart cities, so applications that help enhance business operations, those would fall under that
Okay, yeah, I'd like a little more detail on that.
Okay.
In specific, one application that Ms. Reese has spoken about is the traffic signal preemption. Is that being budgeted this year?
So some of the smart city applications, we don't get too specific just yet because we have some opportunity projects. So depending on what comes up, there are some aspects of data applications that we could be using towards that, but not specifically on traffic preemption. We have not budgeted for that.
Right.
But it could also come from a different department.
Okay, I'll pause there. I do have two other topics, but I'll yield my time to another time.
Thank you.
I'm sorry? You're not quite ready? Oh, no. Well, Mr. Byers has already had one, so. Not to cut you off, but we'll be over there.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Hune and the Budget Committee and Budget Team. This is always a very insightful and informative, and it's been some great questions and conversations so far. I think I'll start with where my colleague left off on smart cities, although I don't think we need Ms. Gatteraj at the mic. I don't think. I know we'll probably talk about it later, but congratulations on your recent award and status achievement. I know that the state of Illinois is planning to do a large Main Street 51 project coming up, and there's some potential for some smart infrastructure as they redo. Do we have plans for that in our 0 to 5 year budget?
That I can't answer.
autos.
I thought it might be you, but I wasn't sure.
There are funds budgeted in the roadway fund to cover not only upgrades to all the traffic signals, but also the other portions of the project that the town would be responsible, resurfacing everything from parking lanes to striping in parking lanes. We're responsible for a certain percentage of all the traffic signals and the equipment that'll be replaced as part of that. And then a portion of the sidewalks, we would take a look at that, although the state is primarily responsible for those as well.
So as that comes upon us, I don't know what opportunities that presents between the conversations between our enterprise technology department and Mr. Oda, your group around, while it's all dug up, is there opportunity for us to at least put conduit in the rights of way or underneath the ground or across the roadways to get from one side of the road to the other with technology infrastructure? I'll just leave it at that high level without trying to go down to any detail, because it seems like a ripe opportunity. It's once in a long while that the state decides to tear up a long stretch of our major thoroughfare, and that seems like a ripe opportunity for us in that infrastructure planning.
Yes, there's definitely an opportunity there, and we are looking at that. The signals, a lot of the conduits will be completely removed and replaced. Some of them are antiquated to the point where installing some of the features that we have to have now, including accessible APS systems for our signals, aren't possible because the conduits are seized and cannot be, you can't pull wire in them. So we're looking, and we will be replacing a lot of those conduits. There is conduit along most of the corridor right now because of the coordination system that's currently in place. So we'll be either upgrading or replacing that as needed part of the project.
Thank you. As I anticipated, you guys are already thinking about that, but I hadn't heard it mentioned or specifically called out anywhere, so I know that's a good opportunity for us.
Mr. McCarthy, could I ask a question
Sure.
related to that? On the
Yeah.
conduit, is there design on installing newer conduits for excess capacity down the road?
I'm going to have to look into that. I don't know the answer to that in terms of what the state's plans are there in terms of brand new conduits.
Back to you.
Excellent question. In terms of just to level set, I know there was back to you, Mr. Yoon. talking about our funds, capital funds that we're concerned about. I just want to make sure we're clearly stating in the public. I know we've been throwing around operations and capital, and that what we're talking about principally is the amount of money that we're collecting for water and sewer is not meeting the needs of both operations and capital.
Correct.
And that we're funding operations currently with the amount of revenue, but the capital projects, our ability to reinvest in our water and our sewer system to maintain it, grow it, expand it, replace it, we are not charging enough money to be able to afford that at our current rates.
Correct. We're sacrificing some capital projects to maintain an operating system. Correct. You've got it right. Correct.
So eventually that will, if we don't act, that will bite us.
Right. That's not a long-term sustainable action.
We'll have deferred maintenance such that will cost us.
Right.
Yeah.
And those costs, we don't avoid those costs they are going to happen. It's just a matter of paying for them now, paying for them later, and structuring a capital plan that can address those with the rate structure that can address them too.
Okay. I'm going to echo my colleagues' comments. I appreciate the plan we've been on. I did make comment when we instituted the 5-year 2% that wasn't going to be enough, and here we are. Not for any other reason, just for public consumption, that these services are expensive to run, and they're getting more and more expensive to run. And every community across the United States is dealing with increased chemical costs, increased costs of pipe, of man hours, of all the work it takes to maintain them. But I do favor a more flat, well-known increase as well, rather than kicking the can down the road, that it's programmed in on a regular basis. It's published. The citizens know what we're up to and how we're planning to address the increasing capital costs of maintaining, drinkable, healthy water for the community and wastewater system that works appropriately. That's all I have for now. Thanks.
Mr. Byers, back to you. Go ahead, Mr. Byers. Since I called Mr. Byers,
why don't you let Mr. Preston go? He hasn't gone yet.
I didn't see you, Scott and Tom.
I'll take it. All right. First of all, thanks, Andrew, to you and your team. As always, appreciate the depth and the long-term scope that these come to us with. Obviously, the 5-year budgeting process, I think, is a model, and I'm glad that the town has been operating under that and looking far out and making strategic long-term decisions so that we can avoid surprises as much as possible, and glad to see another strong budget with us here. So thanks to your team again with finance and to the budget committee overall. With that, a couple different questions. One on personnel. It was noted, I think on page 22, slide 22, that there's an assistant chief position in fire that is budgeted, but that is temporary. Can somebody define temporary? I mean, are we talking a 1 year or 2 year, like roughly how long are we anticipating temporary being?
Well, I'll try and answer that, and we can always talk to Chief Humer, but not longer than 5 years, really. I would expect the purpose of this position is for succession planning, and currently we're in a position where all of fire administration have enough years of service where they could choose to retire, which is not a good position, so we want to plan for future assistant chiefs and chiefs.
Got it. Okay. All right. That answers that. The sales tax, probably not on the revenue side, but thinking of sales tax is, does the budget reflect continuing to make shared sales tax payments to the county without any pause over the next 5 years?
Yes.
Okay. Should there be a pause to some extent that gets approved? Has there been thought or discussion as to, how those funds would be utilized, that savings would be utilized at this point, or not until we know if that's even going to be a reality?
We have we have not planned for anything, a what if in that particular scenario. We included our funding obligation in all 5 years of the budget per the intergovernmental agreement as it's currently written, in hopes that we can, all three parties can negotiate some alternative, and then we would come back to council at that time.
Sure. Okay. Different topic, picking up a little bit on the economic development. So the reduction of 50% to the EDC from 100,000 down to 50,000. Have there been conversations with EDC leadership about that, or is that something that they will be caught kind of by surprise in this budget? That is what's the town's anticipating doing?
We haven't talked about that yet. So like I said, that line item still has 100,000 in it if we choose to direct the money that way, or we can divide it up as we would recommend, but we have not had any conversations with EDC about that. I can say Mr. Duffel, his ideas regarding what could be done, well, two things. As an investor in EDC, an investor gets the same benefit for 50,000 as you do for 100,000. So it would be no different for us, just a budgetary impact. But in terms of what we would like to do with the 50,000, if we fund Economic Development Council in the amount of 50,000, Mr. Duffel's ideas of how to invest those $50,000 to support specific local small businesses is in response to some information that we've received through his business survey, and what some of the small businesses have indicated to him would be useful in terms of small business loans, etc. So we have some ideas, but yet working through those.
Okay. Just a personal note on this. I would, with the information I have now, be a proponent of maintaining a $100,000 allocation to the EDC specifically. I think that Mr. Duffel's program and some of the feedback that he's received from businesses sounds great. And if there's another 50,000 to make both work, where EDC would stay at 100 and there would still be 50 for a small business program in-house, that would be something that I would certainly be supportive of. And then switching gears, last question I have at this point, just want to reiterate something that I had asked earlier. So slide page 17, talking about waste removal. As that conversation comes to us for a decision, I would feel very strongly about having data and looking at the utilization and the frequency for bulky and brush and landscaping, I guess, beyond the garbage and recycling, because my hunch is that garbage and recycling are used by most residences every week. Bulky brush and landscaping is much more hit and miss, and if there are some ways that save considerable money without having considerable impact, if they're not being utilized by that many people that often, I mean, that's the obvious first place to look. And so I hope that it doesn't just come to us with well, we recommend going from 32 to 42 type of thing. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Now, Mr. Byers, we'll come to you.
Thanks. So yeah, one, I realized something I wanted to say earlier, which was I'm looking forward to the discussion on the bulk pickup. I mean, I think that's a service everyone loves, and I'd like to make sure we could find a way to continue to provide that service. The second point, I honestly, I was kind of a little caught off guard, still processing from a question that my colleague asked on EDC. I mean, earlier when I made a comment about economic development, I saw everyone up here's heads nodding that we all agree economic development's important. Personally, as a council member, I've reached out to EDC different times as a council member and have found valuable feedback and insights from them. So I truly have no idea why we'd be cutting that funding. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I mean, I'll be very black and white. I mean, if we're going to cut funding to EDC, I'm a no on the whole budget, which is disappointing because I like a lot of what's in here and there's a lot of good things going on. And I think that that's a conversation that we may need to take offline here, because I don't understand why that's going on, and I'd like to get a better understanding of why that's happening. And honestly, I feel a little, I don't want to say offended, but the way that the summary was put together, it feels a little bit like it was a sleight of hand, whereas if Ms. Lorenz hadn't asked the question, is this in the budget? There was a very vague note there that said, well, we're going to rework the economic development. I mean, there's a chance that several of us would have gone into voting on the budget in the future and have had no idea about that. So I don't appreciate how this has been presented, and I think that this is worthy of more conversation, because I think we're going the completely wrong direction here. So I'm disappointed.
Well, if I could just jump in, as council knows, I've asked to meet with all of you later this week. There's lots of things to cover between now and council's final budget. So it was not specifically identified in the 11-page memo I gave you. I apologize for that. There's nothing hidden, and even I'm not sure what you're suggesting is a sleight of hand. Mr. Hune's slide is referencing the $2 million that we had budgeted historically for economic development support. It's been included in the budget. I think that's what you just indicated.
Correct, yeah, when that.
So a $50,000 difference between EDC is certainly something that we would discuss with you. And I apologize that it wasn't highlighted in the memo, but nothing intentionally hidden. And so lots of things to discuss with council between now and March, but certainly supporting our small businesses will be one of those topics.
That's fair. Just to close, I mean, intentionally or not, I mean, it feels like there's conversations or things that we're not being party to as council members, and generally don't like being caught by surprise. 'Cause it's an organization I really support. So I'm just surprised that, there's something going on behind the scenes that I'm not aware of as a council member. So that's disappointing.
Fair enough. Ms. Smith?
Thank you. On page 39, so this is part of the water bill, correct?
The utility bill, correct, yeah.
Okay.
It's a component of that.
So I have seen articles discussing alternate techniques to deal with rainwater. Some of those include minimizing paving, using permeable materials like gravel or other kinds of paving material where the water is allowed to seep back into the ground and not need to go into the stormwater system, but it by the absorption is absorbed back into our groundwater. Another thing to minimize cost is to ensure storm drains remain clear. And I've noticed that some of the new developments are going for a so-called dry detention basin because I guess they got tired of chasing geese away. But I want to point out that when we're looking at the garbage collection, part of the reason we want to pick up leaves and yard waste is to keep it from blocking the storm sewers. And if anybody had neighbors that took advantage of the late second pass at leaf collection, I know you can appreciate there's not as much dry leaves blowing around the street towards the storm sewer. So even if it's not heavily used, it does bear a purpose. And then again, going back to the slide where you had the discussion of the outstanding debt, you're stating on there that it doesn't include the anticipated issue of $12 million in new bonds for the connector project, but by leaving it out, you're highlighting that there's a $7 million decrease in outstanding debt. So even with an issue of $12 million, there's only a net increase in outstanding debt of $5 million. So I appreciate that distinction. And then in looking at the issue of parking funds, if we could just review the process, that we're here tonight looking at a projection of the budget for the upcoming year, and this will not necessarily be the actual events that occur in the next 12 months, but historically, the town comes back to us later on with a discussion of here's what our actual was, here's what our budget was, and then recommendations are made as to how to reallocate those funds. Am I correct in that that is what occurs over the summer? So for the current fiscal year that ends in March 31st, as the auditors come in and do their work and compare the actual to the budget, there will be some adjustments made to bring the actual expenditures in line. And so in prior years, we've done things like say, we do have a surplus now, let's take that surplus and apply it towards the pension.
That is correct. That usually happens in July, where we come to council and ask you to approve all of the budget adjustments that have occurred throughout the fiscal year. The fiscal year ends March 31, so usually in July, when finance is closing out the books, we can track exactly all the budget adjustments line by line. We come to council, you approve that, and when we have ended the fiscal year, on occasions where we've ended with a surplus beyond what we planned, or any kind of surplus, we've directed those dollars somewhere. In recent years, one year we took $3 million each and put $3 million extra into each of the public safety pension programs.
And we've also had situations where some of that excess built up the reserves in the fire department funds, as well as the library, giving the library the flexibility to not have to borrow when they did their renovation. And did we have to borrow when we renovated, when we built the new fire station number 2?
We did, because we issued bonds a number of years ago to cover old headquarters that opened in 2017, and some money toward new fire station 2. So it was covered by bonds.
But when the actual costs came in, they were higher than what we had budgeted for, but those reserves gave us the ability to not cut corners on what we wanted to see in that new fire station, correct?
Right. Cost of construction was much greater than we had anticipated.
And just to clarify the forecasting process, I had asked the question about when you mentioned that there were a number of retirements anticipated, and generally businesses that are anticipating retirement are happy to see older people that may have reached the tops of the salary limits being replaced with younger people at a lower pay scale. And so when that happens, I had asked whether or not it was built into the forecast to adjust the salary cost, and I was told you don't feel comfortable doing that until someone actually turns in their retirement papers and is gone from the budget. So there may be some cushion in salaries, but it's because we cannot forecast just exactly when someone's going to leave, or have to tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, you got to get out of here. You're not budgeted for anymore. So those reserves that are created happen as a matter of routine in the budgeting process. It's not meant to be any nefarious effort to mislead anyone.
Yeah, correct. I guess I would add to that it's always our goal to be transparent and honest with council. When we have years of surpluses, the council probably recalls that we took those funds and we paid off debt. We contributed more to pension funds. We contributed more to pavement operations. We contributed more. We set aside money for economic development, the $2 million. So those parking, if you will, we're putting those funds aside. We're not spending them immediately. We're making sure they're available for capital projects that might be needed in the future. A lot of those funds have been eliminated because we don't want to program into the budget for operations. We want to program the budget for something anticipatory, like the fire station, debt payoff, economic development. That's the ebb and flow of those years of significant surplus. Nothing we're trying to hide. We're simply trying to put money where we think we might have expense in the future. And indeed, it does come to fruition sometimes. Other times we have to pull it back.
And after I'd gone through your slides here, I had some questions on the 11-page memo that came. And in terms of the after-school and before-school programs, those rates were for the entire 9-week session. That wasn't a per-week session price, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I was paying close to that amount per week, when my kids were little. And then I did see that there were some increases in park and rec fees and the Children's Discovery Museums, but I was told that there have been some nominal fee increase in each budget cycle, but there's also scholarship programs. Would it be possible to ask Ms. Wisman to talk about how she communicates the availability of those scholarship programs?
Sure, or Mr. Damry. Mr. Damry, do you have information about your scholarship programs for those that can't afford the program fees, or Ms. Wisman for your services? I think, do you guys use the same scholarship?
Yeah, I think we're
Good.
separate.
Okay.
We have, our process is, we advertise it within our programming as well as in our activity guide. And really, it's a fee assistance program. So individuals that qualify will get 50% off on certain programs, which is basically day camp, before school, after school, and I think that might be it. And then it's 25% off of other programs, and they get an allotment of money that they can use throughout the year. Right now, it's, I want to say we adjust it a little bit. I think it's $750 to $800 would be a cap, and really that's just lost revenue is what that ends up being. We don't have any fund actually reimbursing that that lost revenue, so it's impacting on the net of that program in the end. So that's kind of how it works. We have a lot of people take advantage of it, mainly for those two programs, which is why we that's kind of the target. We want to be able to provide those programs that are taking place at those critical times.
For the Children's Discovery Museum, Illinois Art Station as well, we actually do have fundraising that happens to try to offer those scholarships, so it's a little bit different. It is a lost revenue to some degree, but we try to fill that bucket in with the help of the nonprofit foundation that is fundraising, and we also are able to use funds that come in to support Museums for All, which is our program that offers half-price admission for families who are on nutrition assistance. So, for instance, very recently, both Ameren and Nicor Gas donated to support that access program. We have individuals who do that as well. It's pretty traditional for museums to offer that kind of access. And so what it does is it means that families opt in voluntarily to sign up for that program. It's free to sign up, and then they get that half-price access. But then it also means we have their contact information so that we can then reach out to them with scholarship information.
And I understand that the state mandate that minimum wage be increased to $15. Is that now fully implemented, and your entry-level staff are all at that $15 rate? And Andrew, then in the budget, are those positions now just getting a general cost of living increase in your forecast?
Well, we've got them all at the appropriate rate for the minimum wage increase. At times, we might go a little higher than that, depending on the need for the service lifeguards and so forth. But we program in there what we think the market's going to desire.
And Human Resources has a separate pay scale for non-regular part-time, like seasonal work, summer employees, things like that, with the baseline of the minimum wage and working up from there. So it's not necessarily applied with a COLA or anything like that.
And as individuals have been speaking to specific passions of theirs, I was disappointed to see that Soore funding level has been flat for quite some time. But that's a joint program with Bloomington. Have they also kept their support flat?
There was probably a slight, there will be a slight increase in that, mainly based on services that we've been providing through Soore. A lot of inclusive services have been provided, so that's generally one-on-one aids, which is our highest demand here in Normal. And that's where we have a staff person come over and work one-on-one with a participant that might be in one of our programs, like day camp specifically is a really, we have a few in that program. So it's slightly higher just because of, I think, the the expense of that demand, but for the most part, it has been fairly flat. Yeah,
I know there's a mad scramble on every registration day to get your loved one into their programs, and unfortunately, they close. Some of the more popular ones close rather quickly, and they at times have created a waiting list, but there's a lot of need and demand for those kind of services. So
The city of Bloomington provides the programming and schedule the activities, and then they notify us of our cost share. So
Okay.
that's how we determine our budget dollar amount each year is based on what the city of Bloomington has indicated they need from us to operate the program.
okay. Bear with me. Oh, in the budget, there was mention of purchasing a second set of gear for the firemen currently employed. Could someone explain what the rationale is behind that concept of providing each, thank you guys, each staff member, each firefighter and an EMT with 2 sets of gear?
Chief, do you want to, and Denny, you want to come up? I don't have a good amount of information. I know that we budgeted for a second set of bunker gear. But I'll let the experts talk about that.
Sure. This is something that we have been talking to the Budget Committee about for the last couple of years. We did go ahead and split it over 2 years because it's pretty costly. It's about $100,000 each year for that to get us up to the 2 sets of bunker gear. The reason for that is that if a firefighter responds on a call that's a fire, structure fire, whatever, they get all wet in the middle of in the wintertime, they get all wet, they get covered, you know, in insulation and, you know, anything that they could get covered in or whatever. They can take it back to the fire station, take it apart. We have extractors there that they can wash those in, and then they put them on a drying rack. And it takes about a day for all that equipment to dry out and everything like that. So then they'll have a second set of gear that they can put on so they can continue to work throughout the day instead of trying to borrow somebody's gear that doesn't fit them or something like that. So that's the main reason for it.
And I think the language in the memo was referring to the initial plans are the second set of gear for existing personnel, or is it for a specific shift?
All existing personnel. Once we're done with the 2-year project, everybody will have 2 sets of gear. We were slowed down just a little bit, not to get into the weeds or anything, but there's a PFAS issue, which is a cancer-causing agent that is in bunker gear. Our current bunker gear is 98% PFAS-free, but we are trialing some bunker gear that is 0% PFAS. So we have 10 sets of gear out there now that people are wearing. They're going to get back to us, let us know how it wears and all that kind of stuff as we move forward with this project and that type of thing.
So are you replacing some of the gear that they currently have and then having to get 2 completely new sets?
It just all depends on the age and what shape their gear is in. Bunker gear is supposed to last 10 years, but that's kind of a myth, really, especially as much training as we send our people to the fire academy and different training classes. It's really hard on the protective gear and everything like that. We see that our gear probably only lasts about 8 years. But what we'll do is we look at that gear independently. We inspect it, you know, monthly, yearly for sure, you know, to take a good look at everything, send it in for repairs or whatever we need to do.
And on a related topic, I've been answering a lot of emails that I've received about people inquiring about station, the existing Station 2 versus the new Station 2, and some reference to the increase in population. But actually, our population declined since that 2013 analysis was done. Can you remind me of how long it took for the planning that went into deciding upon and building the main headquarters, and how long that process took for Station Number 2?
Sure. That process started in 2013, if I'm correct. That's when we first met with the council and, laid out a plan for moving and replacing the 3 fire stations that we had. It's been a work in progress. Obviously, the headquarters station went much quicker. We were able to get the land acquisition and move with the university to make that happen and build that project and everything like that. And then we started this project with current Fire Station 2. We did multiple open hearings and everything with the neighbors and everything like that, because there was some concern about the noise and everything like that. And then COVID happened, it slowed us way down and everything like that. And so this project has been, ongoing for like the last 4 years.
But as I recall, I think even before I joined the council, the land acquisition didn't occur till what, late 2018, 2019?
That sounds correct. I don't have that right in front of me now.
Okay,
But
so
that sounds correct, yeah.
so laying the groundwork, excuse the pun, really is more like 6 years ago.
That's correct. And so basically, there's been a lot of things that have gone on during that 6 years. Like we said, there was COVID, which really slowed us down and everything. We started to work toward a design build type situation instead of an architect build. We were lucky to partner with Core Construction, and they partnered with Farnsworth. So we worked a lot with Farnsworth and Core Construction. We worked with our administrative staff. We had a group of firefighters from, each shift, weigh in on, the kitchens, the bedrooms, the lighting, the different things that go on in a fire station, the creature comfort type things and everything like that. Pulled all that together, put it out for a bid, did, had 3 or 4 different companies come in and give us proposals and everything like that. Ultimately went with Core. And the project has really gone well. And now we're ready to move forward. The station will open January 29th, so this month is moving day, 2 moving days maybe. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we got here.
Sure, and Ms. Smith, I'm sorry, if I could add just a little bit of detail to kind of set the stage for how some of these decisions are made. We're constantly reviewing the data. The sorts of things that we're looking at include our CAD system data, internal fire records, our real-world emergency vehicle drive times, and GIS modeling. We're very lucky, and in just a little bit we'll be recognizing Visu and some of her staff. We've got a fantastic INT staff with lots of very well-qualified data analysts who are digging in and are really looking at these things like drive times and response times and call volumes really, really carefully. So that's how station locations are decided. And all of that is within our framework of the 4 to 6 minute response. That's a goal that's set by the McLean County Area EMS. And that has been in place from inception of this phased approach of relocating stations. So just wanted to add a little bit more detail and kind of how we look at that and how that process moves forward. I actually asked Ms. Gadaraju to come forward to just give a small example of the sorts of GIS modeling that we do, because I think that her team should be proud of all their efforts.
Given all the emails, and presuming since we're here to talk about the overall budget and each department's budget in anticipation of questions, I think Ms. Gadaraju and Ms. Keir are prepared to answer questions, but depends on if council wants specific information or not.
I'm going to ask that we kind of back away from this. So we're starting to get on a completely different topic that not related to the budget. And I'd just as soon not go there
That's fine.
here.
Well, I had sent a link when I was responding to give them access to the town's information on the website, and I had encouraged those concerned about the coverage issue, and the town did mention the cost. I encouraged people to come to this budget session where we would have it, and I was disappointed to see that we didn't have many new faces in the crowd. But will this budget session be recorded and available on the website?
Yes.
Will there be any kind of transcript of this budget session on the website as well?
Well, it will be on our YouTube channel, which I think has transcription. I'm looking at Ms. Olafson. I think so. And then any information regarding data concerning fire department services and operations is also on our website.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Further on the, Ms. Lorenz?
I do think that in whatever time we have remaining, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about what accounts for about 45, almost 46% of the budget, and that's police and fire. We've been teasing out things about public works and parks and rec and so on and so forth, and all of that's important, but let's talk meat and potatoes. So I guess a general question for both the chiefs. Do you have enough in your budget for what you need?
Yes.
Chief Petrilli?
You don't have anything more to say?
If we stay status quo, yes. If we keep 3 fire stations, if we keep 63 people, yes.
Yeah, sure. Come on up, Chief Petrilli. And could somebody maybe get the doors back there? It's a little bit loud. Thank you for your help.
I mean, I'm just looking at some of your, both of you have, all of the departments have performance measures, and so I was looking at that, and, just maybe speak, Chief Petrilli, to, looks like you've got a metric as far as number of calls over sworn staff strength. Have you increased your staff? Do you have enough staff? How do you feel about meeting your metrics?
Yeah, so I think overall the budget process for us was a great one. I know I just kind of gave you a thumbs up there that doesn't tell you a whole lot, but I think in relation to staffing, training, technology, equipment, this entire council has been supportive of us every time we've brought new technologies, emerging technologies in front of you. Our budget this year reflects some improvements in infrastructure for securing large events with some barricades that we've gotten for the uptown footprint. Drone as first responder programs. We've added some needed training and some other technology. So yeah, I mean, overall our budget is sufficient and it's providing us what we need to do our jobs.
And you have 92. Are you fully staffed?
We've got a couple gaps just based on retirements, and we've had a resignation here recently as well.
Okay. So you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, we're in good shape.
You are 25.6% of the budget.
Duh.
You're 25. You're the largest slice of the pie, and so it should be.
These are
among first responders, right?
These are our 2 largest departments right here.
Right. That's why they need to be here, right? That's why it's like we couldn't stop this budget hearing without hearing from you guys. All right. So similarly, Chief Humer, I was looking at your performance metrics as well, and could you explain the turnout metric, and is your budget supporting where you want these metrics to go?
Turnout metrics. I'm not following you, I guess.
You've got a performance measure called turnout time.
Turnout time
Right.
is the
5 minutes, 41 seconds.
That is the response time with the turnout time added to it. So when Metcom puts out a call, puts out a tone for a call, That's the time between we receive the call to the time that we arrive on the scene.
Oh, so this is really turnout and,
Dispatch, turnout and response.
okay, all right. And so we are at, could you break that down? Is that,
Sure. The turnout time is, we would like for it to be a minute or less
okay.
of that time.
And then you mentioned something about you've got adequate for staying status quo. Your analysis for future needs of the department, total calls, you see that reducing, I mean, by a little bit, but reducing to, we're at 8,061, you see it going down to 8,045?
Sure. We are in the process right now of discussing it with the legal department and administrative staff to look at reducing the amount of lift assist that we do with the local nursing homes and everything. The state addressed that in a new law that says that, you know, we can charge nursing homes and assisted living facilities for the lift assist. And so we will hopefully be assessing them a charge for that, which will in turn reduce the amount of calls. Because that's the ultimate goal, is to reduce the amount of calls that we have to go to the nursing homes and the possibility of injury to our firefighters when we're picking people up off the floor and putting them back into their bed or their chair or whatever like that. And we really feel like, and so did the state, that is the responsibility of the nursing home or the assisted living professionals to do that, not the firefighters.
And so with those changes, you still don't see the number of calls going up at all?
No.
No, okay. We're still contracted with Hudson and Towanda?
Right.
Hudson Fire Protection District, not the Village of Hudson.
Okay. And does that money that we get on those contracts, does that come back, and any of these other fees, does that come back to support the fire operations?
It goes to the general fund.
Does it come back to you sufficiently?
It comes back to me through the purchase of ambulances and fire trucks and all the equipment that the fire department receives through the general fund.
All right. My last question is about this addition of a temporary assistant chief.
Sure.
So we want to add another assistant chief for potentially up to 5 years before existing assistant chiefs might retire.
So the two current assistant chiefs that I have 28 years and 29 years. Usually 30 years is the top end for the pension for firefighters. I've been in the fire service, pensionable fire service. It'll be 23 years this year. And, you know, had a 22-year career with Carle Foundation Hospital before that. So one of us is going to leave here before too long. And so we're just trying to get ready for that.
Yeah.
With all the additionals of all the FOIAs and everything that we're doing, all the run response times, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, we need to be able to take care of the regular business of the fire department as well, instead of all the things that we're keeping busy with now.
Fair enough. I disagree with adding an assistant chief. I understand the importance of succession planning, but to bake it in for 5 years seems excessive, and
Oh,
especially
no,
in light of,
Not baked in.
I don't think I said that.
I
think
thought
said it
that's
would
what
be less
Andrew-
than 5 years.
okay, baked in for up to and through 4 years is excessive. And given suddenly, I think a lot of interest, even just present right now, about having enough boots on the ground for fire protection and EMS coverage, this is a really bad look, if nothing else. So that's all I have.
One more, and I think we need to wrap this up unless there's a burning question here.
When you're talking about response time, I think we cut off Ms. Krieger. When the town of Normal is discussing response times, it's actually looking at more than just 2 points on a GIS map. And our actual run times would factor in sirens on, lights lights going, the ability to go through red lights and intersections at above the speed limit. So, and I understand that the fire department is not permitted to share information that might potentially identify individuals
Ms. Smith,
under HIPAA.
Ms.
So,
Smith, I'm going to ask that we not go there.
Okay.
Please. We're talking budget issues here tonight.
thank you.
I think at this point, unless a council member would like another item to bring up, I think we should adjourn this work session, take a 5-minute break, and go into council.
Yep.
Do you have any?
No, thank you for council's comments. We've taken lots of notes. Like we said, we'll bring the final budget document to you. I believe your first meeting in March is our target. And so once we're done with this, we've got a bunch of other things on your plate. We've got public hearing, liquor commission, and then some presentations, so.
Yep. So let's come back at, let's say 7:10, give you 7 minutes to, now 6 minutes. We've got a very busy schedule tonight, and we've got a number of things before we go into our regular meeting. The first is a public hearing pertaining to the Uptown North TIF District. Call to order a public hearing for the Uptown North TIF District. Please call the roll.
Mayor Coos?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Mr. Roberge?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to the Uptown North TIF District? Is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to the Uptown North TIF District? And I'm required to ask this question 3 times. Is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to the Uptown North TIF District? Motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. Are adjourned from the public hearing. Call to order a meeting of the normal local liquor commission.
Mayor Coos?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Mr. Roberge?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
We have 2 items of business tonight. The first is approval of the minutes of the special meeting of October 6, 2025. Motion for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Any changes or additions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye, those minutes are approved. We have a liquor license application for Oak and Ember Kitchen LLC, doing business as Oak and Ember Kitchen
Move approval.
at 1609 Northbrook Drive.
Second.
Thank you. This is a license for a Class C liquor license, which is beer and wine only, as I recall. Correct. Discussion on that item? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. That liquor license is approved. A motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. The Liquor Commission is adjourned. We have 2 recognitions tonight. The first is a recognition of the CIMS certification for facilities and staff management. So, what are we doing?
Mayor and Council, we were going to use a few minutes of your time this evening to recognize 2 departments that have recently received awards. One is, I'm going to invite the Facilities Management Team. Eric Hagee's going to come forward and explain that. And then after that will be Ms. Gadaraju.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reese, and Mayor and Council. Yeah, so this was the SIM certification. Falls under the Cleaning Industry Management Standard, GB, representing green building, and also that was completed with honors. It's a huge lift for our department, specifically Ladine Finley, our custodial supervisor. She really does a great job. There's a lot of paperwork, documentation, but then also, you know, kudos to the staff. We're fortunate we have a few folks here tonight, but that's, you know, implementing those policies and standards, you know, just throughout their everyday practice. You know, there's significance to the certification, but it also just has become our daily practice. So, you know, again, kudos to them. SIMS, again, Cleaning Industry Management Standard, but, you know, some of the main highlights of that is healthy environments, efficiency, and how we carry out our duties. quality control, making sure that what we're doing is actually effective. Whereas we always say, Mark's said it, multiple times, if you've talked to him about it, but we clean for health, and the byproduct is just things look nice. The primary goal is to make sure that things are healthy and sanitary. And then sustainability too. The GB green building, that's kind of falls under LEED, but we're also trying to use as many green products as possible. And that's just part of what we do. Again, it's just kind of built into our day-to-day. And again, I just wanted to highlight staff. Ladine, she's developed a great rapport with the assessor that comes through and does this. And it's, like I said, takes months to compile all the information, all the data, review everything, and make sure that it's ready to go for when the assessor does come through. So appreciate the time. Thank you.
And the only thing I'd like to add to that is that I am very thankful as director of the department, the overall department. This is a top tier standard. That is quality management, Mr. Hagee, Ms. Finley, and actual real life execution of what we're doing to make this thing work. So very proud of staff. It is no small task to achieve this, to get this designation with green and honors exceeds the fundamental baseline to achieve SIMS on its own right with the green elements, plus 85% of the voluntary required items, which we exceeded that. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to celebrate this and acknowledge staff. Great.
And Mayor and Council, we've recognized the Water Department and Mr. Burkhart quite a bit with his water designation. So if Council doesn't mind, since we're recognizing, could we do a picture with you like we usually do? And I think some of your team is here.
I was going to suggest the team stand up and come forward, and we'll do a photo opportunity. Thank you.
Can we shift this way a little bit? Just to be under town of normal. Shift. There we go. Step in. Get cozy. Okay, everybody look at me. Thank you.
Raju, come forward for yet another award, a very impressive one as well. And while she's coming forward, I think it's appropriate to just recognize the professionalism of everybody that works for the town of Normal. We get awards like this repeatedly. And it just shows the professionalism and dedication of everybody that works for the town of Normal. So thank you for that. So.
Way. Good evening, everybody. I typically don't have prepared remarks, but today I do because there is a lot to cover about What Works Cities. Town of Normal is now a What Works Cities Silver certified city, joining only a handful of other communities in Illinois to earn this international recognition. So what does this mean? In short, this international certification from Bloomberg Philanthropies confirms that Town of Normal has been doing data right. From strong data practices to measurable outcomes for our community. This achievement, as many of you know, did not happen overnight. It reflects a long journey that began with our 2017 comprehensive plan that called for the town to incorporate smart city thinking in all aspects of community building. And at its core, smart city thinking incorporates data into decision-making and drawing meaningful insights to solve real community problems. So the certification is a testament to Town and Normal's intentional and disciplined approach to data. We focus on ensuring that our information we collect is accurate from the start, and most often we know it doesn't always start at its greatest, so we make sure it is cleaned, documented, and understood in context. In other words, we trust our data, but we definitely verify it. What does this look like in real world? It shows up in our everyday decisions, such as improving efficiency for our public works and engineering operations, grounding sustainability efforts in our measurable outcomes, advancing campus and pedestrian safety through regional collaboration, tracking strategic plan implementation and aligning budgets, increasing transparency through our open data portal, and last but not the least, strengthening community engagement that directly shape programs like our public arts initiatives. So the What Works City Silver certification is not about a single project or a single platform or a single department. It is recognition of how the Town and Normal works. A significant driver of this success is our Data I team, which is a cross-departmental team that was appointed by our city manager, Reese, in 2021 to launch the town's open data portal. What began as a transparency initiative quickly evolved into something much more impactful. So today, the Data I team works across departments to improve data quality and build data literacy and ensure information is shared rather than siloed, because we all know that data is much more useful when it is not stuck on somebody's desktop. I also want to recognize innovation and technology staff who worked in the background to strengthen data governance. When we talk about data governance, this is the stuff that people usually don't think about. It's making sure that we have a comprehensive inventory of our data and making sure that we know where our data is and how to protect our data, connecting to back-end systems so that we can break down data silos in the back end. So things that are not glamorous but essential, without which everything else will fall apart. Finally, I want to thank town leadership and council for treating data as a strategic asset rather than an afterthought, and for empowering staff to prioritize this work. This level of alignment, both across departments and vertically between staff and leadership, is what Bloomberg recognized as best practice for data, and really what truly sets Normal apart from its peer communities. At this time, I would like to invite our Data I team members, many of which are in our audience, to stand up and be recognized. And I also want to invite INT staff to stand up and be recognized. And I want to give a particular shout out to Sarah Rogers, who spearheaded this initiative on behalf of INT department. Yes. Please come up, all Data I team members, come on up.
Yep, come on forward.
All Data I team members, please come up.
It's your moment to shine.
Mercy? And Beth? Kathy? Can somebody else take the pic for a second, please?
I am on the date. It's okay. Everybody's heads to squish in. Do a second. Two balls. Yeah, that's shorter people in the front. Sorry. Come on, people. Team up.
If I have to be in the front, you have to be in the front.
Sue, down here towards the middle. Okay, I still need, Eric, I need you to cozy in.
The spread need to go that way.
Whew. I might need you. Okay, everybody look at me. Okay, great.
Call to order a meeting for the Normal Town Council for Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus?
Here?
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Mr. Roberge?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Before we start, let's have a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to start this meeting on a little different note tonight. Anybody recognize that?
Oh, my God.
So I'm wearing this hat as a friendly wager with Mayor Terry Cunningham of Bozeman, Montana, on the outcome of the national championship game between Montana State Bobcats and the Illinois State Redbirds. Oh, boy. So congratulations to Mayor Cunningham. His team won and I lost the bet. So tip of the hat to the mayor and Montana State. But also thank you to the community, to the Redbirds team. They gave an incredible performance at that game. It's one of the best football games ever played, I think. And thanks to all the fans who went to Nashville to support the Redbirds in their attempt to get a national championship. You played well, hold your heads high. It was an incredible, incredible game. And my message, I had sent a hat, Redbirds hat, to Mayor Cunningham, and my message to Mayor Cunningham is hold on to that hat and we'll see you next year. We'll move to the omnibus agenda. Items considered routine and would be handled with a single vote unless a council member would like to pull an item.
You know, Mayor, I'm going to have you pause for just a second. You skipped over public comment. I don't know if there is any or not, but.
We don't have public comment at the beginning of the meeting. We do have public comment at the end of the meeting.
Move approval. Oops.
I'd like to remove item C, as in Charlie.
Have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Items considered under omnibus tonight are approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of January 5th, 2026. A report to receive and file town of normal expenditures for payment as of January 14th, 2026. A resolution to authorize the mayor to execute a design contract for exhibit updates at the Children's Discovery Museum with Roto Group LLC in the amount not to exceed $90,000. A resolution to approve executive session minutes, to release certain executive session minutes, and to retain confidentiality for certain executive session minutes. Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, those items are approved. Item C is a resolution accepting quotes and authorizing the purchase of two 2026 Chevrolet Equinox EVs from Sam Lehman Chevrolet in the amount of $58,745.26.
Move for approval.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
I removed this item from the omnibus agenda because I wanted to highlight that the funding is, to purchase these, is being provided by Ameren, and that's $100,000 in total. But because of the Sam Lehman Chevrolet's very attractive offer where they continue to apply $500 of a program that expired last year, we're getting this very favorable price. So what happens to money that we do not spend out of the $100,000 that was made available to us by Ameren?
We can continue to use those dollars for other things such as additional EVs in the future or charging stations.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Further on this item? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Byers? Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. That resolution is approved. We have no general orders. We have one item of new business tonight, a motion to approve an appointment to the Human Relations Commission.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy, would you read that?
I'd be happy to. The mayor is appointing Mr. Brian Hinman to the Human Relations Commission. Mr. Hinman has been a resident of Normal for 15 years, employed by Chestnut Health Systems as the Associate Director of Court Treatment Programs. He also has a side business where he takes a small number of private clients via telehealth as a practitioner. Mr. Hinman holds a master's degree in clinical psychology with a background in philosophy from EIU. He is passionate about serving the community and lifting the voices of those that are not always given a platform to be heard, as shown through his volunteer work at Prairie Pride Coalition, Chestnut Health Systems DEI Committee, and outreach programming at local colleges, churches, and other venues. Mr. Hinman looks forward to serving his community as Human Relations Commission board member. He will be filling a vacancy with a term expiring on March 31st of 2030.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. That appointment is approved. We move to public comment, and we have 5 speakers in public comment tonight. I'll just go over the rules very quickly. Some of you have been here before, so I think you understand them, but when you come forward, I'd like you to state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to make your comments. Our first commenter is Chris Coates. You can take any of the chairs up here. All the microphones are live.
Mayor Coos, City Councilman, members, I appreciate the opportunity for you guys to listen to me speak tonight. As you said, my name is Chris Coates. I'm the Vice President of the Associated Firefighters of Illinois, 26-year professional firefighter in the city of Pekin, and the bargaining agent for Normal Firefighters Local 2442. And what I wanted to come to speak to you guys tonight was to briefly go over some of the articles I've read and things I've seen online and in the paper, and just dispel a few things. The first thing I want to touch base on is I've seen in several times where there's been comments in the media and things about the firefighters not bringing the station to change or increasing the number of fire departments to the collective bargaining table at their last negotiations, which wrapped up, I think, just this past fall. The Illinois Public Labor Relations Act specifically excludes management-type rights from collective bargaining agreements, which is the total number of people that are employed by a city municipality, as well as number of fire station, those type of things. Those are inherent management rights. We don't have the right to collective bargain about those issues. So I did want to make that public, to be known that it's not something that the firefighters haven't asked to talk about. They've requested labor management meetings in the past, starting with the fire chief, with the city administration, and I believe even up to the city council, and they've been met with no response. So that's the only avenue they have to be able to have a discussion outside of a public hearing of this type of thing. I guess I would just ask that all they really want is a seat at the table to have a discussion, to have a frank, honest discussion on what they see as issues regarding the fire department. And unfortunately, to this point, they haven't had the ability to be able to have those comments. So I'd ask that respectively that you consider having a conversation with them. I also wanted to touch base on, there's been a lot of discussion over response times in regards to where station locations and stuff are, and I want to touch on why those response times are so important. But I also want to touch base on, in the 2024 annual report that the fire department presented to you guys, the average response time was listed as 5 minutes and 41 seconds. And then there was recently a fact sheet that went out to public entities where that number all of a sudden became 4 minutes and 28 seconds. It doesn't seem like a whole lot. 45 seconds doesn't seem like much to a layperson, but when you're talking about a fire doubles in size every 30 seconds. So when these members are talking about how important it is to have this response time, and be able to be as close to that 4-minute response time as possible, you can see that even at a 4-minute response time, how fast a fire can grow. Add another 45 seconds to that, and the ability to have that fire grow again and double is a definite detriment to the citizens that you guys serve in ensuring that they have the most safe environment as possible. So I see my time's running out. The one thing I want to come to you guys tonight is as firefighters, we just want to have the opportunity to talk to you, to share a conversation as to why we think these things are important. And I respectfully ask that you have a seat with the firefighters and at least talk about these things. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chuck Sullivan. We don't make it easy, do we?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Chuck Sullivan, and I truly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm the president of the Associated Firefighters of Illinois. The AFI represents over 18,000 professional firefighters and paramedics in 238 different locals across our great state. Obviously, one of them is your local 2442. And I really want to make something perfectly clear tonight, and that is that the AFFI, as a state association, is not out promoting or willy-nilly expanding fire stations or personnel. What we have always promoted since our founding in 1935 is that each of our members took an oath. They swore to protect the individuals and property of our respective communities. So in other words, we realize as firefighters that we have a very dangerous and demanding job, and that when your firefighter paramedics in Normal raised their right hand and swore an oath, they did so knowing that they're sacrificing their very health, their very safety, and ultimately their life, knowing that they're going to risk it all for others. So we, as a state association and as Local 2442, we deal in facts. We deal in real world where our decisions are based in truth and consequence. This is not fear-mongering. I want to make that clear. This is not fear-mongering. This is not an attempt by the AFI to gain more members. I just mentioned we have 18,000. We deal in facts based on experience, data, science, and history, and what we are simply suggesting to you tonight is, after a very deliberate and time-consuming research and updated fire station location study with superior computerized models using GIS, is that the town of Normal is providing a less than adequate deployment of stations and personnel. We all completely understand and appreciate the cost of providing adequate fire and EMS. We are all taxpayers. But this local and this state association are not going to stand by quiet. We're not going to go away when facts, data, and science indicate an extremely stark difference in what this town is telling their constituents and their businesses. We are unapologetic when it comes to public safety, and we hope that you share that same sentiment. So I have the opportunity to travel across the state and meet with various locals and their various city governments. This is a first. This is a first, as I understand it, that town staff has refused to sit down with the local to at least hear their concerns or meet to better understand the updated studies. And I apologize, my time is running out. I hope I'm conveying exactly how our local and our state association feels. I'll wrap this up and be very, very direct. If you do not take into consideration what Local 2442 is trying to share with you, the Normal Fire Department will not be able to meet the level of service this community expects and deserves. Thank you.
I'll just ask, please don't applaud or call out in the course of the meeting, we'd appreciate just a little bit of decorum in the meeting. I understand your enthusiasm and appreciate it, but please don't do that. Our next speaker is Blake Chauncey.
Good evening, council members, mayor, city manager, and fellow citizens and visitors of Normal. My name is Blake Chauncey. I'm a member of Normal Firefighters, Local 2442. I've met with many of you to present our community needs study, and tonight I want to address the town's fire station relocation and answers document and recent comments made by town staff regarding fire and EMS coverage. First, 4 minutes versus 6 minutes. NFPA 1710, the standard for a career fire department, is 4 minutes. The NFPA, an internationally respected century-old organization, does not set that number arbitrarily. It is based on extensive research from organizations such as the National Institute of Standards and Technology, UL's Fire Safety Research Institute, and the American Heart Association, showing that outcomes for both fire and medical emergencies are significantly better when response times are within 4 minutes. The town's document cites a 6-minute standard taken from our EMS system, which is mainly made up of volunteer agencies in rural settings, facing very different challenges. The people of Normal employ a career fire department and deserve the level of service backed by national standards and scientific research, not a slower rural benchmark. Expecting volunteer level response times from a career department is unacceptable. Second, the town has still not provided any modeling or documentation to the public to support its claims. We have seen no administrative planning documents, no aggregate reports, and no detailed analysis to review. Instead, we have been given an FAQ-style summary that selectively highlights over 1 million data points without letting anyone see how they were actually used. When our local attempted to obtain this information through FOIA requests, we were denied, and only after we publicly released our community needs study did any recent planning documents start to appear. Finally, the town's document says that we are requesting resources costing $100 million over 10 years. We've made no such request. Those numbers are based off of recommendations in the study, not demands. Our actual request is simple: to work collaboratively with the town and to help plan responsibly. This same town document that I am referencing says that the town is committed to a positive working relationship with the union. Yet there has been a refusal to meet with us. And this refusal to simply meet with your community's first responders directly affects the safety of everyone in Normal. And as a citizen of this town, I find the hesitancy to meet with us concerning. Normal Firefighters Local 2442 wants to partner with the town to solve these challenges, not create unnecessary costs. We want to use our expertise and real-world experience to help make Normal a safer place in a way that is responsible with taxpayer dollars. I want to thank those council members willing to meet with us to address these issues. Those of you who are hesitant to meet with us or advocate for a work session, I politely ask you to reconsider and offer an open line of communication to address your concerns. Please call for a public work session. Thank you.
Next speaker is Eric Hall.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and citizens. My name is Eric Hall. I am a citizen of Normal. I spoke to you last month. I currently live just a few short blocks away from the Station 2. I am also currently the president of Bloomington Firefighters Local 49. We stand here tonight in support of our brothers of 2442. But I speak to you tonight as a citizen of this town. On December 3rd, during a WGLT discussion, Councilmember McCarthy outlined the town's analysis behind the proposed relocation of Fire Station Number 2. In that interview, Councilmember McCarthy stated, "We are not just dropping push pins on a Google map," and made references to route driving analysis, CAD data, vehicle tracking, and trial runs. These comments imply the decision to move the station is data-driven, as outlined in your award you received this evening. Following that interview, I submitted a detailed email request to Mr. McCarthy and the council through the town's website, asking that the data referenced in those remarks be made publicly available on the fire department's page. To date, I have received no response to my email, and no supporting data has been released to the public. The materials I requested were neither unusual nor unreasonable. They included route driving and travel time data, historical CAD responses, GIS call density maps, and modeling assumptions. These are the very tools the town has cited as the foundation for relocating Station Number 2 away from my family and neighbors. Yet residents have been given no opportunity to see the data. If this decision is truly data-driven, then the data should be easily accessible on the town's website. Front and center, transparency builds trust. Withholding information, especially after it has been publicly referenced multiple times, raises questions of integrity of this council. Recently, I saw a town staff member had stated that a 4-minute response time is the platinum standard under NFPA 1710. That is not accurate. 1710 is the standard. There are no tiers, platinum, gold, or silver. What further complicates the issues is the inconsistency in how the council defines what is acceptable. When it came to infrastructure, half the council voted to pass a premium underpass plan instead of a more modest at-grade crossing. But when it comes to emergency response and public safety, when it comes to the safety of our families and our neighborhoods, residents are expected to settle for less. That inconsistency should alarm everyone. Public safety is not negotiable. If the data justifies the decision, then make it public. Currently, the union's data is the only one residents have been able to see. Rather than attacking their data in the media, the same manager, mayor, and council should want to release the town's data and plan and to show how it improves emergency response and public safety with the move. Finally, to my fellow citizens, local government only works when elected officials remember who they answer to. Transparency and public safety are not favors to be granted. They are obligations. When a mayor and council refuse to listen, refuse to share information behind their decisions, and refuse to put public safety first, they forfeit the trust of the people they serve. At that point, our silence is not an option. It becomes our responsibility to hold them accountable and, if necessary, replace them with leaders that will. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Mickey Stapleton.
Thank you, Mayor Coos and council members for allowing me to speak today. I'm not a very good speaker, but I'm speaking from my heart. I went around Friday and Saturday in 13-degree weather to find out what the neighbors wanted for this town. And they wanted Station 2 to stay where it is. They had no idea that Station further out on Shepherd Road was going to replace the Station 2 at College and Blair. They thought you were just adding one. So, and what I heard from a lot of them is, why could you not just use your, and I don't know if this is accurate, $4 million for the underpass, take that and put it towards the fire station. It does need some upgrades, and I'm sure the guys will admit to that, because I walked in there looking for somebody to talk to them, and I walked in the back door, it was not locked, and I'm yelling at the top of my lungs for somebody. Nobody was there because the guys were out on a call. So, you know, lock needs to be replaced at least there, and a doorbell that works. And, you know, I got a petition signed, and I have 4 pages of signatures here, and I'll leave it right here for you. I did not fudge any of the signatures. A lot of them were elderly people, and they said, you know, they appreciate the fire station being where it is because they were able to get to them in time for their situation that they had. But thank you very much.
That concludes our public comment. Before taking a motion for adjournment, are there comments or concerns? Ms. Lorenz?
I will make a few comments of an observation on the commenters that we just heard tonight, but I also want to draw attention to another public safety matter that actually is good news. As many of you know, I work at Home Sweet Home Ministries, and as of today, I think about 40 people who previously were living outside in a tent, in a car, unhoused, are now in a warm cabin, one of the 56 residents that will be part of the Bridge new shelter village. So thank you to, I see representation from both Bloomington Fire and Normal. I'm sure the tent encampments have been a strain on some of your resources, and I personally thank you for all the attention that you've given them. A special shout out to Bloomington Fire for always very regularly attending to the needs at the shelter campus in general. So, so good news on that, and let's not lose sight of a win of this magnitude. As far as our commenters, I've been a frequent commenter at this juncture in most of our meetings. I will once again ask for what I think others said so eloquently tonight, and that is that we sit down and have a conversation, invite the firefighters, the representatives of Local 2442 to be at the table, to share the data from the town and their study, and be civic leaders. And I am once again asking my colleagues, or at least a majority of my colleagues sitting up here, it takes 4 of us to put a work session on the agenda. I'm asking, I think I'm at this point begging for a work session. Thank you.
Mr. Byers?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, it just as a quick comment in response to some of the comments tonight. Something that I think could be a reasonable step, because my view on the question of how many firefighters should we have, how many fire stations should we have, the answer to both is fundamentally driven by data. And if the data says we should stay the same, then that's what we should do. If the data says we need more, then that's what we should do. And finding the funding in the case we needed more that's a financial problem that we could find a solution to. So where I'm coming from on this, to me, a reasonable approach based off of just a lot of the feedback we've gotten in the community, and I think wanting to add to the data that we have and just provide reassurance to the community as well as, would it not make sense to authorize, especially as we're talking about budget season, to authorize a updated third-party study that would look at this issue, provide a report that we as the town would have, and then certainly we could put that side by side with the one that the union has authorized, look at the methodology in both, look at the outcomes in both, and maybe we'll find, hey, there's a lot of overlap in these two studies, or maybe we'll find there's differences and we could rectify those. But to me, more data is a good thing. I understand and appreciate that administration is working with a lot of data currently, but to me, having an additional data point, especially that a third-party consultant type would put together, to me, that could be something that's beneficial to everybody involved in this issue. It's something that I would certainly support. Could be something that could become part of the budget conversations we're having here in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.